It's why indie authors came into being, really, because people were so sick of being rejected because they weren't known, but also because you can write a book that you know is you and you're quite happy with what you've put, and they not only rip it apart, but they'll change everything, and they ask you to rewrite realms and realms of your book. That, unfortunately, is they're looking for one thing, and that's that, they can basically make money.
Welcome to the Pocket Sergeant podcast. This episode is a little bit different. I've had a lot of current and former police officers ask me, how do you go about writing a book? If you told me a year ago I'd be a best-selling author, I would have laughed. I don't read much. I struggle with reading. 2 lines into a book and I'm already rereading them. But last year, I came across a book called Handcuffed Emotions. It was written by Ben Pearson, a former police interceptor, and ghostwritten by Patricia Sutcliffe. That book changed something in me. Fast forward a few months, I'd been to Ideas Fest, which is dubbed Glastonbury but for business owners. I'd walked past a stall for a hybrid publisher. I got speaking to the people on the stall for ages, and they specialised in business books. The conversation brought me back to Ben Pearson's book, and I was drawn to Pat's name on the cover. So I sent her an email, drove an hour to meet her, and now my book, From Trauma to Triumph, is out in the world. Here it is. Today I'm thrilled to be joined by the ghostwriter behind Handcuffed Emotions and my own book, Patricia Sutcliffe. Pat, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for inviting me, Paul.
Let's start with your own story. So you're a writer, but you're not just a writer. You help people tell their stories they've never told before. How did you end up doing this kind of work?
Well, believe it or not, I ended up doing this kind of work by pure, whether I say fortune or misfortune. I was writing, and of course I've written and published my own books, but I hadn't really thought about ghostwriting, although I'm really interested in people's stories. And I've actually always read biographies for some reason, and autobiographies. And what happened was I saw a contact on a web page that I was party of, basically saying that this person needed his story writing, but he'd got PTSD, and would anybody be willing to do it? But I'm also a counsellor and a therapist. And I thought, well, that's a good combination of skills. Why not? So I contacted, and that's where Ben Pearson appeared. And the rest was history. And since then, I have written numerous ghost books. Some of them have been written under NDAs, which means a no disclosure agreement. So I can't speak about them. But I've written in total about 9 ghost books now. And I just absolutely love it. But I was never setting out to do that. It just, like life takes its turns. It just came to me.
It just happened.
Yep.
So you worked with Ben Pearson on Handcuffed Emotions. What was that process like? And how did it feel seeing how widely that book resonated with readers?
Well, I worked on 2 books with Ben. I did 2 of his books, which was the first 2, which was Handcuffed Emotions and Hotel Tango. It didn't surprise me at all that there was an awful lot of readership. Number one, because it did have some fame because of interceptors, and you have to be realistic. Ben had a good following to start with, and that does matter. But it's like anything else. Ben and Ben's books and everybody else's books I've written, every person's individual. Every person has their own story. So, whether they get immense success or not depends on their ability to market. Ben has a good ability to market. So, I'm not surprised at all that it got the success it did.
When you first met me, one of the first things you said in the initial meeting was this was more about whether we could work together or whether you could work with me. Why is that so important to you as a ghostwriter?
Well, let me say the first thing that ran through my mind when I met you was not another bloody policeman. But, because policemen tend to be drawn to me for some reason to write the books. But no, it's important, and I do that with everybody, including people that come to me for therapy. If you cannot connect with a person, remember when I'm writing a book for anybody, I've got to put myself in their shoes. And I've also got to be able to do it in a language which is like the language they use, because it's got to be authentic to the person. I can't do that if I'm up against a person who, quite bluntly, I don't feel I have a connection with or can work with. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest misconceptions people might have about working with a ghostwriter, do you think? Because when I first met you, I had no idea what to expect.
No, I know you didn't. You were frightened to death. The biggest misconception is, and you've said it, and Ben Pearson said it, and Colin, whose books I've written, said it, I won't remember. And you in particular, told me how atrocious your memory was. So one of the biggest things is that memory works in a funny way. It's got to be triggered. And part of my job is to trigger memory, so that when you tell me a brief thing, I will then delve into that, and your mind starts working in a different way. So I can get more from you and the best from you than you if you just sat down, to be blunt, and wrote it. As simple as that. So that's one of the main things. The other is people always think, oh, but what if it's silly? What if people laugh? What if I have to say things that I don't want? And that's never the case. The book is about you, and as you know from what I've said to you, this is all about your journey. So nothing in the book is going to be there that you don't want to say. The only thing that I have is sometimes I do have to stop people saying things, quite frankly. Yeah. And I do have to say, no, you're not including that. You'll end up in a court, or we'll end up in a legal battle. So I've also got that role.
Yeah, and actually, going back to the whole memory thing. I have an absolute, I have an atrocious memory. But actually what was happening after each time we met, because we met on a Zoom call fortnightly, didn't we?
Yeah.
But when you were picking at things and I was struggling to remember, I would go away that week and I'd start remembering that and other things, and I'd be sending you the stuff. So it worked really well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my story. A lot of people don't. So witnessed domestic abuse as a young child. Lost my mum. Went into care. Joined the police. Built an app. What made you say yes to taking on my story in this project?
Number one, because you were approachable. I know the minute I meet somebody, if I can work with them in terms of just the sort of personality. But then when I started to listen to your story, it was unique. And I didn't want to do another just blunt police story. I wanted, and it's what I look for, is something unique. And you were quite unique. And quite honestly, a lot of the things that you were telling me, I hear from other people. And I thought, no, this guy needs to write this, because writing is also very cathartic. You needed to release a lot of the stuff that was inside of you. And that's why I said, yes, Paul.
And actually, when we were writing the book together, you always reminded me of one thing. This is your book. You do what you want with it. Why is that ownership so important for authors, especially indie ones?
Because right from day one, when you start to write, if you are involved in something and you don't take ownership of it, so you don't feel it's yours, then quite bluntly, you're not going to put the same amount of, and it's not just about effort, it's about the emotion. And you don't put the same amount into it that you would do when you know this is not just somebody writing a book for me. This is my book, and everything in that book is about me. This is my life being laid bare. So it's very important that you take ownership. And anybody, to be honest, who wants to write a book for anybody and literally says, give me XXX information, I'll write the book. No, it's got to be your book. And that's why every chapter came to you, came back, came to you, came back, because we had to make it your book and you had to take ownership, which you did. In fact, you drove me mad.
Yeah, I did. And I think at one point, I passed the book onto an editor at the end, and they must have cut about a fifth of that book. But it wasn't to do with the quality of or the stories what we were talking about. But the editor was really interested in learning more about the emotions, how I was feeling, what was going through my head during the bigger points, the biggest stories, I guess, in that book, to a point now where I've still got a fifth of that first book that I could well put into the next book. But yeah, all I had in my head was, remember, this is your book. But then on the flip side of that, you were quite conscious that as it's my book,
yeah,
I think we had to be careful that an editor didn't take away from
correct
what I was saying and didn't change the voice and everything else. And what you've touched on earlier as well, one of the big parts of working with a ghostwriter is you can tell the story how you want it to be told, whereas I think I might be wrong. Whereas if I went down the literary agent, traditional publisher route, then they more take control of the cover and how your story is told.
They do. I think the thing is, Paul, going down the traditional route, one is lengthy. It's why indie authors came into being, really, because people were so sick of being rejected because they weren't known, and that's a factor in it. But also because you can write a book that you know is you and you're quite happy with what you've put, and they not only rip it apart, but they'll change everything. And they ask you to rewrite realms and realms of your book. Yeah. And that unfortunately is they're looking for one thing, and that's that, they can basically make money. When an indie author writes and publishes a book, we are doing it because, one, we think we have a story to tell and it's important. And two, we're doing it because we have to say to people, look, don't be scared. Don't think you can't do this. Anybody can. Yes, it takes an ability to write, but anybody can do this. And going to a traditional publisher puts that totally away from even you. And you think by the end of it, well, I can't write, obviously. But it's not the case. So indie authors, to me, it's the best thing that's ever happened.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I love the way my story was told. I love the way the book is perceived. And even everything like about the cover, I was able to go speak to an independent designer and pretty much have what I wanted. But I mean, following on from the writing of the book, we then sat and formatted the book together. We uploaded. We then uploaded it to KDP and Kindle. I used Kindle Create to upload it. So for people listening who think publishing is some elite club, how accessible would you say is indie publishing today?
Oh, indie publishing today, particularly if you use KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing, and it costs. This is the big factor with many people. When you first write a book, a lot of people think it's going to cost me a fortune to get that published. It doesn't, because everything through KDP, and I have to say that because it's what I use, and it's the biggest marketplace, everything through KDP is so systematic. You're basically taught through it, And once you've got your book formatted, you've got your cover screen, etc., 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 they make it so easy to actually publish it. And the beautiful thing about it is, say that you go through your book and you think, oh my goodness, that's one hell of an error, or I've got somebody's name wrong, or that's libelous. You can actually take it back down, you can change it and then reload it. And it costs you nothing. The only thing that costs you is that they will take from you, which is quite right, they'll take publishing costs. But because they publish on demand, you're not having to buy 100 books before you can actually start selling your books. So there's a lot to go for it. And there are different people that do indie publishing, apart from KDP, but that's the one I use. It's the one I know. But it's a much, much easier process. And certainly everybody I've written books from are now saying, I want to do another book. I'm going to do another book, because they realise, oh my God, I'm there. I remember your face, Paul, when you first showed me your book in your hand and you went, whoa, and your face was like a little 2-year-old being given an ice cream. You were unbelievable. And that to me is the magic of what we do. And the magic of being able to do this so easily.
But it's almost like a bug as well. That's how I describe it. And I never thought... I'd always wanted to write a book because I knew I had such a unique backstory. But now I'm already underway. We're writing another, which I can't wait to share with you. But yeah, it's almost as if you get to the end of your first book, and it's almost like a void. There's a void because you're not writing.
It's true. I'm constantly writing.
Yeah. So I'm just too busy now.
It's a funny thing. It starts off as a hobby, and you think, I'll write. I won my first writing competition at 10 years of age. And at that stage in my life, I never, ever thought I'd be doing what I do now. And it's just something that's there in the background. But as you say, because you're busy, you're doing other things, you don't see it as a career. You see everything else as a career. And because of that, you push it back and back. But then suddenly, when you actually open it up, you do find that all you want to do is write. Yeah. I write constantly, and I absolutely love it. That's another thing about writing. If you don't like writing, then don't even start. But I love writing. So, if I'm not seeing clients, or I'm not playing chess, my other love, something like that, I'm writing. It's the point where I forget time, I lose time. And you will do the same, because you're that character, Paul.
What are some of the practical tips that you'd give to somebody thinking about writing a memoir or non-fiction book?
First stage in writing any book is know who you want to write it for. So are you writing it for you, for a legacy, which I certainly did with my book on my career life? Are you writing it as a legacy for your family? Are you writing it because you want to market it and sell it? In that case, what is your audience? You need to know these questions and answer these questions to yourself before you put pen to paper, or in this day and age, fingers to typewriter. And then the next important thing is knowing the sequence the book is going to take, because otherwise you're all over the place. So you have to know what the structure of the book is going to be. And that's what we worked on, as you know, very, very early. Once you've got your structure of your book, you can then start on your individual, whether you call it sections, chapters. In this day and age, people aren't so much into traditional chapters. So whether it's a section or not, you then must plot out that section. So you can't just say, okay, this is my heading, I'll just write. You can't do that. Well, you can, but you won't be successful. And I always, as well, I use splay diagrams. So I've got little arrows going everywhere, telling me exactly what's going to be in that section. When you've done that and you start writing each section, my advice is always do not correct. You'll never finish the book.
Yeah.
Get through it. There are some very good apps now Certainly, I use Grammarly. There are some very good apps that will do the minor edits all the way through anyway. So get through the book, and then you have to start looking at things such as, okay, what there's a lot of extras. It's not just the book. As you know, there's your acknowledgement, there's your basically who you are as an author, there's your title pages, there's a lot more extras. So that's when you work on them at the end. And partway through, which you did, partway through, start thinking about what you want your cover to be like.
Yeah.
And it's got to represent you. Your cover is genuinely one of the best covers I've ever seen. Absolutely love it. And as you know, you've very kindly done the cover for my next book, and I'm thrilled to be with it. I really am. It's fantastic. And everybody says so. So, yeah, it's really organisation, knowing where you're going, planning it out, and to be honest, dedicating yourself to doing so much every day.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
I remember when we first started out and you just said, oh, just send me everything you've got. And I think I had about, that was your biggest regret ever. It was about 100, I'm sure it was about 100 pages. There was a load of blank pages. There was writing everywhere from where I'd tried writing chapters, and then I've been pulled into something else. So I had quite a good base of things that I wanted to talk about, but it was just all over the place. And I think this is where you were really useful and helpful. I knew what I wanted to say. I knew what I wanted to tell people, but I just didn't know how. And I think you were great. You were great for that.
Thank you. But most people do that, Paul.
Yeah.
They put together all sorts, but normally they give me, a small wee amount. Yours, when you brought them, I thought, bloody hell, why did I open my mouth? But it took me, days and days just to work through. But by God, what an insight into you I got from it.
Yeah.
Especially some of them, which I won't name, but some of your documentation, what an insight. I know you better than you know you.
I know. That's worrying, isn't it? We've talked a lot here about memoir non-fiction, mainly because I think every police officer, every member of staff, everybody across the emergency services, NHS, whatever, will have great stories. They'll have unbelievable stories.
Yeah.
However, I know you've worked on quite a few memoirs and non-fiction. Have you worked on any fiction books with anybody else?
My own books are fiction.
Yeah.
But where I can say yes, I mean, obviously I've written two fictional books. But there again, when you say fiction, a lot of that is still what's inside of you that comes out. No such thing as pure fiction. But where I've worked with other people on fictional books, which I actually love as well, because you can let your mind and the characters run riot. I have taught courses on how to write books. So because I've taught courses, I've helped people that, come with their ideas and how to, again, put them in some sort of order. It's as simple as that. People, like you've just said, most of the problem is they've got everything. It's either there, or it's in the heart, or it's in paperwork, but they've no idea how to conjoin it. So that's the main thing, and that's the same in fiction and non-fiction. But fiction, it's important with characterization and having a very good, what we call arc. You know, for every great thing you're saying that's making people think, oh, great, and then every, oh, terrible. You've got to keep the flow. You can't have just a book which is so, well, to be honest, vicious and boring and all about death. It doesn't work. Everybody's life, if you think about it, Paul, has ups and downs, and that's how a book should be as well.
What do you think makes a reader connect with a true story, even if they've not lived it?
Because there's elements of any true story, when you say they've not lived it, there's elements of every true story which trigger in somebody something that's happened to them or somebody they know. Everything's connected. And, when you talk about, let's say, childhood abuse, the number of people out there that's faced that, maybe not in the same format as you, but have faced it in different formats, those people, it triggers something inside. For other people, what it triggers is their empathy. They empathise with the person, so they want to know more about the person. So the trigger can be different, but there isn't anybody or anything that you will write about that somebody hasn't some experience of. And that's why people read particularly books like yours.
I know with going back to my book, I did find it really hard at times and I've struggled to talk about the hardest parts of my story.
You did.
What do you do when someone really struggles like what I did?
Well, what do I do? Remember that the beauty of something I do is I'm also a therapist. So I'm very good at being able to talk you through that. But what I do at that point is I will stop rather than push, but I'll talk to you then about self-esteem, what you're going through. I'll make you understand. And that I suppose, I'm fortunate, is unique to me probably. But then I find that if it's okay that, you're upset. It's okay you're finding it difficult. Everybody finds things difficult. That way you can then overcome and think, yeah, I'm going to carry on. I've nothing to be worried about. And that's what I do. So I try and make sure that you're comfortable. And by God, we got some stuff, Paul.
No, we did, didn't we?
We really did.
With my book then, how did you make sure that my voice stayed intact, even though, even you were the one, even because you're the one writing it?
Well, whilst I couldn't obviously copy your accent, so it's a good job that I wasn't actually.
Don't. When I transferred to Lincolnshire, because we had cake fines. We did some sort of misdemeanour, I don't know, if we lost our van keys or if we left our warrant card lying about, we'd commit what's called a cake offence. And I'd be like, oh, that's cakes. And then all I'd hear is the rest of the shift saying, cake. No. So.
Well, fortunately, Paul, I didn't have to mimic your voice. But the way that I actually do it is I'm listening to you an awful lot, as you know, on Zoom. So I'm listening to it's called NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. I'm listening to the way you talk, the way you phrase things. So when I'm writing phrases and sentences in the way you would write them. So I'm picking up on the way you actually put things forward. And that's what I'm doing. And I always have something I remember about everybody I've written for. And yours is 3.5 GCSE.
Oh.
I'll never forget that.
And unless people have read my book, they won't understand the whole 3.5 GCSE thing. Yeah. Basically, I failed at school. 3.5 GCSEs was my biggest talking point throughout the whole book writing process with Pat. I don't know why I had to keep bringing it up, to be honest. It just made me feel good.
Well, exactly. It was more than I got at that stage. Oh, you were so funny, Paul. That's another reason I could work with you very well. You learn from everybody you work with, and you learn important lessons, whether they be good or bad. So not everything's always gone brilliant with everybody I've worked with, to be blunt. But I've learned from that. And from you, the learning points are your sense of humour is incredible. Because when you first start speaking to someone, and when I first saw you, you come across as this, I don't know what I'm going to say, and oh my goodness. The reverse is true. Once you break through your character and your barriers, you're brilliant.
And that takes me on to the next thing. So, are there any moments in our work together where you thought, this needs to be said, even though it was difficult to say?
Yeah. The parts during working with you, as with everybody else, are the parts, first and foremost, I'm always very aware of legality. And when you're telling police stories, you can sort of forget about that. And I have to sort of say, look, you can't name those people in that way, because unless you've got absolute proof, these people are going to come back to you. So they're awkward moments when you have to sort of say, change your story. Let's put other names in. But I think also the other very awkward moments come when you are telling me something which I know is not appropriate for your book.
Yeah.
And, I know where your book's going. I know the way your book flows. So if you're telling me things which aren't inappropriate, I also know it can just squash your book. So that's when I have to come and say, hang on, Paul, or Paul, enough of that. Because when you're telling stories which are quite emotive and it's your personal story, you tend to forget at times and you become emotional with it. So the emotion comes out and you say things that, like in any argument, in any talk, you say things which when you reflect later, you think, wish I hadn't have said that. So they're the moments I have to step in. And it can be embarrassing, but again, it's one of the reasons I have to know I can work with you. Because by knowing I can work with you, I know I can also say, whoa, if I can't work with you, that's not going to happen.
And you've worked with a number of people who've lived through trauma as well. So not just myself, but a number of others. And think is it 3 former police officers now that you've helped write books for? There's a common theme here, isn't there? But they all deal with trauma on almost a daily basis.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if they're expected to, like, yeah, there was a lot of trauma in my story from before the police service as well, but within the police service, there's almost a go to a job, a really traumatic job, put it in a box, lock it away, on to the next one. So you've worked with people that have lived through this trauma in the police service, for example. Do you think writing helps them make sense of what they've seen and what they've been through?
What people have to realise, whether it's police work or any other type of work, particularly if it's what we call critical work, it is not what you've seen, what you've done, it's how you manage it. So the reality is, that's what I go through with you. It's how you manage it. But everybody in all walks of life, Paul, has trauma at some stage, whether it be a death of a parent, whether it be, I'm loath to say this, being raped by an uncle. Everybody has trauma in some way. And the more that they can bring that trauma out of themselves, the more, and particularly if they see it in black and white, the more that they can reflect and recognise that it's needed now to be pushed away. It's gone. And it's very cathartic. That's the thing I love about writing. It's very cathartic. And I saw you, in fact, but I've seen with others, from the start of the book to the end of the book, there is a transformation. There's a sort of uplifting, and the person you can see becomes as if they've shed problems. And that, to me, is fantastic.
And
I mean, love that.
There'll be, I'm assuming it's likely the same with Colin and Ben that you've worked with, but there was a lot of things that I'd not told anybody. I've put them in the book. Friends, family, friends in particular have read the book and have received messages off them saying, I had no idea. I'm really sorry all that happened to you. But as I say, well, as we say throughout the book, it's a lesson, isn't it? Like just because something bad happens to you, it doesn't necessarily mean it defines you as a person, but it does shape you as a person.
Absolutely.
So it shapes you. And I think what I've done is I've taken all the bad stuff and used it as resilience to take it into the next thing, which is probably why I'm doing so many things.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
But talking about my past for the book made me realise how much I'd actually buried as well.
But how did you feel, Paul, when you'd got to unbury those things? How did you feel?
Well, it was like going back to the very start. It was almost reliving everything. But being able to take it all out and pick it all apart. I mean, by the end of the book, I don't think really I'd got any further on with. I think it was just can of worms, and I guess what I wanted really was I wanted a lot of answers from when I was younger, answers which still probably don't have. I've probably got even more questions now, but yeah, I think that the book also provided, despite that, it did provide some closure, and it provided something just to say, hey, this is what's happened. But it also, what I like about this book, and I know I'm biased because it's
your book.
From Trauma to Triumph.
Yeah, I love it.
But it talks about the idea of Pocket Sergeant, how that came about.
Yeah, fabulous.
And I just hope that police officers and anybody involved in the emergency services or public sector can look at what I've done and just realise that they don't have to be trapped for the rest of the careers in a service that making them unhappy. They can go off, they can build a business, they can...
You can do what you want.
Yeah.
You know, Paul, one of the things, and I know I said it to you, and I do say to everybody I deal with, whether writing or not writing, every single person has a past. Every person will have a future. But the reality is you live in the here and now. Simple as that. Every choice you make, every decision, every action you take in the here and now. So if you're one of those people who can't be in the here and now and you're bringing your past with you, then quite frankly, you take your past to your future and you've got no future. Your future's become your past. So it's recognising that whichever way you do it, and some do it from storytelling like you've done, others do it from varying means, but every single time that you refuse to allow something to stay hidden and you force it to be challenged, because that's what you're doing, the minute you release it, you're challenging it. And the minute you can do that, Paul, it enables you to move forward. And you with Pocket Sergeant, I mean, my goodness, how many people have you helped? How many people are using it?
Yeah, well, there's over 20,000 subscribers at the moment. So,
think about that.
At least 20,000 people. But
you're helping.
Yeah, you can't buy that, really.
No, you can't. You can't. And that's because of your character. You've started to manage your past, reflect on your past. We all do. But you have to remember that your past is a memory only. There is no past. It's gone. It's only a memory. And every time you remember the memory, it changes. So that's the importance of you remembering it in a positive light, because then it changes and gets better and better. But nothing better than putting it on paper, writing about it and saying, right, done, you're gone.
Yeah.
And you've done that. And you did it brilliantly as well, I'll say.
But what would you say to someone who says, I'm not a writer, I couldn't possibly write a book?
I get that all the time. I mean, you said that at the beginning. and you were writing as much as I did by the end of it. But no, I get that all the time with people. And particularly people who think that their life's not interesting. And I get people coming to me. I've written some which are non-disclosure agreements, where people have come to me and said, I'm embarrassed because I should be able to write. I'm X number of years old. I can't write. And what they really mean is, it's not that they can't write. They've been writing since 4 or 5 years of age. What they actually mean is they don't know how to put it down in a way that will interest other people. And that's what they're talking about. Everybody can write. You taught it very early on, but not everybody can be a writer. So, it's been realistic, but that's where people like me come in.
Absolutely. How do you know when a story is ready to be told?
I know if you recall back to your first interview and when we met, which was just the initial let's meet and let's look if we can work together, I know by the way that you are speaking to me. I know by the things you're telling me. And I know when I ask you questions, which to you might just be, a blank question, but it's not. It's got a meaning. When I ask you questions and your reply tells me whether or not I'm going to be able to pull out sufficient from you to write a book. But also, Paul, when you get to the stage where you're actually seeing somebody, you're not just thinking, I might write a book. You're actually saying, I want to write a book. So I know then half the battle's won.
So what's next for you? I already know. I know about your book. You're writing a book.
I was going to say, don't say anymore.
No, I know you're writing a book yourself at the moment.
A book on metaphysical experiences, because I'm very, very into the universe and very into certain beliefs, which some people call New Age. So I'm writing that book, and it covers every spectrum of metaphysical experience. I'm loving doing it. But I'm also, remember that, I still teach. I love chess. I actually teach English. I have clients who are my therapy clients. So I do so much. And I think that is important, Paul, that you've got a variety. If you've got one thing, it can get tedious. So on a day when I think I've written enough for today, I can then turn to something else. I do numerous things. And obviously there's other things which, I can't talk about. But there's other exciting things that's on the horizon that unfortunately I'm not at liberty to talk about. But I am constantly, I look for opportunities everywhere. And I love, as one door closes, another door opens, which it has done for you.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't matter on age. When people know my age, they go, what? But the reality is, your age doesn't matter. It's what's up there. And I'll tell you now, if you don't keep this going all of your life, then you lose it. It's like everything else. So I'm very involved in a lot of things in my life, but there isn't anything I'm doing that I don't love. I love what I do. I'm very fortunate.
Have you got a title for your new book?
I've got a title. Just give me 1 sec. I'll tell you the title, because you've done the cover, which is absolutely superb, and I thank you for that. So the title of my new book is, and it should be out September. Just a minute. You see, I'm useless on computers, Paul, as you know.
Well, you can operate Zoom.
Yeah, I'm good at Zoom.
Microsoft Word, KDP, and Zoom, and then that's it. You're done.
I'm brilliant.
And now Riverside, now podcasting software.
It's called Beyond the Mortal Coil.
That's great. And when that is out, we're going to get you back on the podcast.
Oh, right, thank you.
If anybody's watching this podcast and wants to know a little bit more about you, how you can help them perhaps tell their story, how do they find you?
I do have a website, which is www.patriciasutcliffeauthor.com. And I think it's patriciasutcliffeauthor.com. I tell you, I'm useless, Paul. You know I am.
If people are struggling to find Pat, then you can get in touch with me at support@pocketsergeant.co.uk, and I can always forward on any queries.
I'm just very quickly typing in what I think it is. This is shocking, isn't it? You see, I'm not good. I don't go out and market all the time. And if I spell author correctly, Paul, I might do better. Let me just very quickly. God. I don't teach technology.
That's a relief.
It still hasn't come up. It's there.
I'm sure it's Patricia Sutcliffe author.
I think it's .com. It's murder, When I'm out and I meet people and they'll say, oh, do you have a website? And I'll say, yeah. Invariably, I give them wrong website. It's just, my love is writing.
Yeah, but I mean, if anybody types in Patricia Sutcliffe author into Google as well, your website comes up. That's how I found you. That's how I found you.
Bless you. Oh, well, thank you. See, I didn't know that, Paul.
Oh, there you go. Give it a try after this.
I'll live and learn. Live and learn. I'm glad you found me.
Thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Thanks so much for writing my book, helping write my book From Trauma to Triumph with me. Couldn't have done it without you. Welcome. As a result of coming on the podcast, you get one of these. I'm going to send you a mug. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll put one in the post this afternoon. Good. And then, hopefully you'll receive it back end of next week.
Fantastic. It'll come through post and I'll say, what the hell's this? Oh, it's him again.
Right,
lovely talk to you, Paul.
Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you.
Right, thanks, Pat.
Thank you.